Hi, this is John Young with the Disc Jockey News. Tonight, my special guest is Ruth. Good evening, Ron.
Good evening, John. How are you?
I'm doing well, doing well. Thanks for coming on with us tonight.
My pleasure.
Yeah, really looking forward to this. Ruth, of course, is a writer for the Disc Jockey News. He is a speaker. He's been around the country doing a lot of things. He's been in the wedding industry for 5-6 years now.
Make it like more closer to 22, 23 years.
22, 23 years, yeah. See? So he is a wealth of knowledge, and he's a good friend of mine. So I'm really excited to spend some time with you tonight, Ron.
My pleasure. I'm glad to be here, John.
Well, let's kind of start off. One of the things that you have, I mentioned speaking. You have spoken at many of the Disc Jockey News events, but where else has the speaking tour taken Ruth?
Well, I've been really fortunate over the last 3 years. I've spoken at the Mobile Beat Conference. I've also had the pleasure of speaking at a local conference called the Wedding Marketing Expo.
Okay.
I have also spoken to a lot of the local and regional ABC, NACE, those types of organizations. And then also last year I had the pleasure of speaking at the Wedding MBA conference in September. And actually I'm very excited. I'm going to be presenting again this September at the Wedding MBA in Vegas as well.
Oh, very nice, very nice. So then you've had crowds with maybe some of your local things, 15, 20 people, and then up to how many were at Wedding MBA?
My room, I would say I had around 250 to 300 people.
Oh, nice.
Which was, yes, and it was quite an experience. It's the first time I really spoke to a large group of individuals in the industry that were not DJs.
Sure.
And so reaction was much different, and preparation was much different, and it was actually it was a rush. It was quite a thrill, and I'm really looking forward to presenting again this year.
Sure, sure. So, Ron, you mentioned in the speaking, you've of course the crowds were different at Wedding MBA compared to DJ events. What are some of the differences? I've spoken at DJ events before, but certainly not at the Wedding MBA.
Well, I think the big difference is that, of course, you're speaking to people that are from every facet of the industry, and in part of my presentation, although not all of it, but a small part of it has to do with the entertainment experience and making the experience for the client something that's going to be entertaining, and to see the reactions and watch the faces of people offering ideas that they've never thought of before is quite an experience. And then to get that response afterwards when people come up to you and they tell you how much that they appreciate what you had to share with them. I think, not that DJs are not appreciative, because they really are, but it's just, when you speak to a group of peers, DJs as an example.
Sure.
It's a much more relaxing atmosphere because you're talking to friends, people that you've known, people that know you.
Sure.
But when you're speaking to 250, 300 wedding professionals that you've never met before, that's a little bit different. I mean, it's just, it's kind of, it's a little awe-inspiring, and to be able to make friends out of that conversation is quite incredible, extraordinary.
Sure, sure. So when you finish your presentation, say at Wedding MBA, at the DJ events, I've seen there's all sorts of personalities. Some that are going to come up there and shake your hand, and they're the ones that just love what you do. Then there's some up there who feel it's their job to come up there and tell you exactly all the things that you forgot to mention. All your presentation. Now, did you find some of that at Wedding MBA also, that you had a group that?
No, not really. Not in the actual. Not at the end of my actual present. Well, my presentation has an awful lot to do with the client experience, and I use my favorite vacation destination as an example of that, Disney World. And so whenever I mention anything that has to do with the Disney parks, there are always people that love going there.
Sure.
And so, there may be little things. They don't tell me that I forgot anything. They come and tell me all of their favorites.
Their stories.
Let me share with you one of my favorite stories, which I love that. I love that because for a couple of reasons. I mean, I love speaking on the topic, and also it shows that they were listening, to what I had to say. So
very neat, very neat. So you mentioned your favorite spot, and this is something a lot of people maybe not know, but you've been to Disney World 5, 6, 7, 10 times.
Try well over 3 dozen times.
I've seen some pictures, of course, where you've gone down. You've now you're taking your grandchildren down there.
I'm taking my granddaughter. I only have one grandchild
okay.
so far. I'm working on trying to get another one. But right now I have a 6-year-old granddaughter. Her name is Presley, and she absolutely loves it. But here's what you're gonna love. When it comes to being a fan of Disney, not so much for her. My wife and I have worked hard to turn her into a Disney fan. But for whatever reason, she is not nearly as impressed as most children. She's not even as impressed as my wife and I are. So we're still struggling with, come on, you can do this. You want to be a part of this magic. So we've taken her once. She had a wonderful time. But as far as making it a yearly occasion for her, maybe not quite yet. She's got too many other interests going on right now. So
when two of you are walking down the little street there, and there comes Cinderella, we can guess which one of you is going to squeal and say,
"Oh, that's gonna be me. That's going to be me." Yeah.
Oh, funny.
Actually, Jasmine is my favorite. Princess.
Neat.
She's hot.
Well, that helps. That's cool. So the speaking is one part, and of course, you as well as myself, a lot of us, we go to many different training sessions, and so I wanted to kind of get your input on this a little bit, because this is a question I get from a lot of DJs on, training and what they're doing. I mean, literally what a person's doing right now, because obviously what we do now is preparing us for this year and next year and beyond. So kind of give us a little idea, what's Ron Ruth doing, what's on your itinerary for training here for the next, 6 months to a year?
Well, right now I'm enrolled and actually just last evening completed my 4th improv class. I'm taking an 8-week course. It meets once a week. However, I'm taking with the same group. I can go on Saturday afternoons when I have Saturdays available to work with the same group in a little bit different atmosphere. But I got to tell you, I'm loving this improv class. It's teaching me so much about listening skills, about being quicker on my feet, about when you're in class, you're reminded how to play, how to have fun. I mean, that is something that we seem to forget. We get so focused on our business, and everything becomes about our business, but we forget how to have fun like a child. I was just talking about my granddaughter Presley. I mean, that's something that seems like we grow out of, and it's so nice to be able to go back to that. But I see such value in what I'm learning that's going to help me with my performance. Bill Herman talks about in the entertainment experience, which is a workshop we can talk about in a moment. In the entertainment experience, Bill Herman talks about being in the moment.
Sure.
Well, that's a wonderful thought, and in a half-day workshop, it's you get it, but until you actually are in those situations, I'm lost in thought here. When you're in improv, you don't have a choice. You have to be in the moment, and so taking what he's taught me and putting it to practice here, the combination is going to be, I think, is going to make me a far better performer than what I am today.
Sure.
And I'm very excited about that. I've taken Bill Herman's, in the past, I've taken Bill Herman's Entertainment Experience Workshop, which I would recommend to anyone. Peter Mary's and Liz Daly's make a grand workshop. Peter does the professional process as well. All of those workshops I would highly recommend to anyone that's in our industry. But here locally for me, working on more personal training, I look forward to either joining Toastmasters this year to work on my speaking skills. I would, if not Toastmasters, the National Speakers Association is another group that I'm considering at this point. So I'm devoting 2014 to personal training and
Okay.
just to getting better at what I do, and being able to do it in something bigger than a workshop setting where it's ongoing training, where you can get personalized training that continues day after day or week after week, rather than just in a 3 or 4 or 5 hour setting.
Sure, sure. Jumping back to the improv, you mentioned, of course, how it's going to help, in your performance. Um, now, one of the things when I've had meetings with clients and such, I've done a little work with improv, but I just kind of felt that maybe there were some skills in there that that directly relate, even though you wouldn't think that they would be.
Well, especially when it comes to listening skills, in improv, you have to accept what the person is telling you as being real and go with that. And so it's a lot of what they call yes and. You take an idea, yes and you build on that idea to continue the story. And in order to do that, in order to continue the story in a manner that makes sense, you have to listen. And I'm guilty. I'm one of the worst salespeople in the world. I've always said that. I put it in my articles. I am not an expert on sales. It's something I struggle with every day. But I think we're all guilty of sitting in a sales meeting and the bride is talking, and we're nodding our head and we're going like this, and instead of really listening to what she's saying, we're already moving on to what we're going to say next. And so I'm hoping that this is going to help me with that, so that I'm not so anxious to already be formulating what I'm going to say, rather than listening to her all the way through, really listening to her all the way through, and then responding afterwards. So I'm really, again, going back to a Bill Hermanism. Ooh, I just made up a new word. A Hermanism.
A Hermanism.
Going back to a Bill Herman, being in that moment.
Yeah.
Rather than just being a part of a moment, I want to be in that moment.
Sure.
So.
No, that makes sense. And when it comes to the face-to-face client meetings, whether it's the pre or afterwards, either time, that's a great skill to have. Yeah.
Well, and I think, going back to what I was saying about being fun too. I mean, we all say we sell fun, but how fun are we in our meetings? I mean, I don't think that we need to be cheesy or campy. I'm not saying it in that sense, but a sales meeting it's really easy. I guess I'm speaking for everyone, but really for me, it's really easy to come to morph out of a fun person into a business person during a sales consultation. You want to project both, but you need to make it something that's not quite so, here's what I do, yada yada. You want to have fun with that. So I think it's going to help in that regard as well. So.
Sure, very, very neat.
Thanks.
Should be exciting. How long the improv course? How long is that? Is that
It's 8 weeks, 8 classes. But again, I'm taking auxiliary classes to go along with it. My wife asked me the other day. I said, "Well, I'm going to start going to the Saturday classes as well." And she said, "Well, why are you doing? You're enrolled in the Monday classes. Why would you go to Saturday?" Well, when I was a kid growing up, I used to play a musical instrument, and I took music lessons once a week.
Sure.
It does no good to take music lessons once a week unless you practice in between those lessons.
Yes.
And so, it's rare that you can just walk out into the street or anywhere and say, "Hey, you want to practice improv with me?" You have to find people that like doing that. So that's why I've chosen to go to the Saturday classes, so that I have people that I can practice with, so that when I go to the next class, I'll be better prepared.
Sure.
And moving on. I think it's funny, because if you're going to do something, you might as well go all the way with it and do it right. Otherwise, you're just wasting your money. You're wasting your time.
Certainly.
Kind of off topic, and it brings to mind something is that one of the things I tell DJs in my presentations in Vegas at MBLV, and also I left out one earlier, the ADJ I've spoken at once, but or even at your conferences. I think DJs that attend conferences have a real leg up on everyone else in their market if they take what they learn and actually put it to practice. So many of the DJs show up, and I would say my unscientific research says less than 20% of the DJs take anything that they've learned back from a conference and actually put it to work. Yeah. And the reason for that is it's hard. Mm-hmm. And improvement is hard work, but nobody's going to hand you a magic pill or a wand or anything else that's going to make it easy. You have to actually work at it. And I find that the DJs that I know that are the most successful and enjoy what they do the most are those who practice the most at their craft and at their business and always working to make it better. I mean, and I say work quite literally. We all have to work at it.
Oh yeah, I agree. I mean, this is ironically a discussion I was just having with my boys this morning. I've got boys in that upper elementary grade, and talking about that you have to work at it, you have to practice, you have to hone your craft. Not for success today all the time. Most of the time, it's that success down the road, that 10-year overnight success that you hear about all the time.
Well, and it's a time of year right now too, where it's every website out there and magazine right now is handing out awards for being the best at best this, the best at whatever. But and it's wonderful. It's always nice to get those awards, but you have to take them for what they're worth. Being the best may mean, in a lot of cases, to me, the best means you were the best for that particular client. It doesn't mean that you're the best at what you do. If you settle back and decide, I'm the best at what I do, well, there's going to be others that pass you by, because something my dad taught me was I don't care how good you are, there's always someone out there that's going to be better at it.
Oh, yes. Very good.
And so if you're not constantly reaching for the next gold ring out there and working to get it, then eventually you'll get left behind.
Yeah.
And that's just a fact of life. Mm-hmm. God, this has gotten deep, John.
Yeah, it has. But that's okay. I mean, we're going through some pretty big stuff, and for anyone who's in the business and serious about what your craft, whether even if it's outside of the DJ industry.
Absolutely.
I mean, this is what it's all about.
Yes, I think so too.
This is what you pay those several, tens of thousands of dollars to go to college and learn.
Right.
And we just put it in 10 minutes.
Yeah. See, I should have been a professor. I missed my calling.
Yeah. You mentioned awards a little bit ago. That with this time of year, there's a lot of those handed out. Uh-huh. And of course, I'm looking over your left shoulder, and I'm seeing an award. So I'm guessing you must have been the recipient of an award.
Oh, this one over here?
No, that's
this one over there.
That's the one I'm looking at.
Okay, well that's not truly an award. It is. I presented it to myself. It just says it's a I don't know if you can see it, a Mickey statue, megaphone, and it's a director Mickey, and I just put a plaque on it. It has my name, the wedding entertainment director. Bought this on eBay, but this is actually my pride and joy. Every so often I just get up and accept it when no one's around and
nice.
Give my little speech. And then, of course, this one over my other shoulder was given to me by the Wedding MBA for presenting at the conference. And it says that I'm a wedding industry leader and distinguished speaker.
Ooh.
So I was pretty impressed with that. So
nice. And then when you came up to the conclave and you received I bet it's still in the mail.
A what?
I bet it's still in the mail, what we were sending you for speaking up here.
Yeah, I probably didn't get anything from the, Well, the mail service in Minnesota runs like really, really slow because those mailmen have to trudge through 10 feet of snow. I got to tell you, though, the Disc Jockey News Conference, and I'm not saying this to disparage any other conference. I think every conference, every educational opportunity is an important opportunity. I don't care if it's Mobile Beat, if it's ADJA, if it's Robbie Britton's Arm DJs, if it's there's another one coming up soon, PhD DJ, I think that's what it's called. And where is that? North Carolina, South Carolina? Raleigh. I think all of those are great learning opportunities. But I got to tell you, one of my favorite conferences is going to Minnesota every year for the Disc Jockey News Conference, and a lot of that has to do with the size of the conference. It's such an intimate setting I don't want to call it small because that almost sounds as though it's not as important. I don't think you built it to be a large conference. And I love the intimate setting. I hope it remains intimate because probably doesn't help you from an income standpoint, but it's nice because the friendships that I have with the people that live in the Minneapolis area and North and South Dakota. I never in my wildest dreams ever thought I would have friends in North or South Dakota. I'm not going to go visit them because they live in North and South Dakota. But I still call them friends. But I mean, I like the give and take that we have. What happened, even as it is with big conferences, it's not always what you learn in the meeting room. It's what happens in the halls. And you have a lot of hall time at the Disc Jockey News that I think is absolutely wonderful. Yeah. And I'm looking forward to your big conference coming up this year.
Yeah. Well, and this past year in Conclave 4, we did some things we hadn't done before that really helped with that networking and that hall time.
Right.
And I think it was such a positive for everyone that we're going to do it next year. We'll have more people. It's going to be a bigger show because it'll be our 10th year show, but there's still going to be that time to go and sit across the table from Ron Ruth and have a pop, or
Absolutely.
because that's gold time to just to hang.
And it's funny because if you remember my presentation this year, I oftentimes reference Todd Mitchum. There are two things I learned from Todd Mitchum. One of them is that never ask a question of your audience unless you know what they're going to say. I've learned that lesson. And the other one, I'm sure that he probably said at some point, it was something about never say something to an audience that you know is not true, which I'm guilty of this year because if you recall at the top of my presentation, I talked about how the Chiefs were going to go on to the Super Bowl, and unfortunately, I was wrong.
Yeah.
So and whoever pulled the plug on me after I said that at your conference, that they I could no longer be upset about it because they were right. And
that was incredible timing.
But then again, I could be a Vikings fan, so I don't know.
That's true.
It could be much worse.
Yeah, exactly. There's always that lower spot.
Yeah.
We're holding it right now.
Or a Lions fan. There you go.
Oh, good stuff. Well, Ron, I think I'm gonna wrap us up here. I think we've got a good. We're at our half-hour point, I think.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
Time flies when you're having fun, John.
Yeah, I know it does. Good discussion, good topics, and we'll have to pick this up after you've gotten through the improv and kind of get a feel for
I'd love to do that.
How that went and kind of touch base about what's coming up for summer of 2014.
I'd love to come back. Thank you, John, so much. I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, well, thank you for coming on, Ron, and have a great evening.
You too.
All right, thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye now.